Hello everyone, we're talking about verbal communication. What is verbal communication? Verbal simply means having to do with words. If you hit someone, that's a physical assault, but if you say nasty things to him, it's a verbal assault. Sometimes we use a verbal to mean spoke instead of written, usually to talk about agreements we made. Examples of verbal communication are conversation, speech, presentation, having a phone call with someone. Verbal communication is an alternative to nonverbal communication, whereby messages are conveyed silently, either written in symbols or through body language.
A verbal is a form of a verb used as an adjective, adverb, or noun. There are three types of verbals: participles, gerund, and infinitives. Each of them can be used by itself or as a part of verbal phrase. So, what is the difference between verb and verbals? A verb is a word used to describe an action, state, or occurrence, and forming the main part of the predicate of a sentence. A verbal is a word or words functioning as a verb. There are three types of different verbal. First is the infinitives, second is the participle, and the gerund. First, we have the infinitives. An infinitive is a verbal consisting of the word to plus as a verb. It is as simply as a stem form and functioning as a noun, adjective, or adverb. The word to and followed by a verb or added by a verb is a base form that you need to always remember. To plus a verb. An infinitive always ends with a verb. Again, it is to added by a verb, and the word always ends with a verb. Infinitive also functions as subject, or a person, place, things, or idea that is performing the noun, performing the action. Second is the direct object, a word or phrase that receives the action of the verb. Next is the subjective complement, expressions that follows the linking verb and that complements the subject. The last one is the adjective. Infinitives can be adjective, used to describe or modify nouns or pronouns. Here are the example of infinitives as subject. First example is number 1. To understand required maturity and acceptance. Second is to laugh is a remedy. As you can see in the example, there is a bold or underlined words that is best explained as infinitives. Again, you need to always remember that there is a word to plus added via verb. The word to added by a verb, which is the understand, is an infinitive. Second is the word to added by a laugh is a infinitive. Second is infinitive as direct object. Everyone wanted to go. Second is we learn to love. As you can see in the underlined words, there is also a word to added by a verb, which is the go and love. Next example is the infinitive as subjective complement. Number 1. His dream is to fly. Number 2. The ambition is to finish my study. There, as you can see in the underlined words, there is also a word to added via verb, which is the fly and finished. The last one is the adjective. The teacher assigned us too many problems to solve. Wherever Melissa goes, she always brings a book to read in case she has a long to wait. There is a word to that is followed by a verb. In the underlined words, you can see the word to followed by the solved word, which is the verb. Next is the read. As you can see in the example, those are the signs of infinitives. The second verbals we have the participle. A participle is a verbal that is used as an adjective and most often ends in ing or ed. The term verbal indicates that a participle, like the other two kinds of verbals, is based on a verb and therefore express action or a state of being. Participle. Verbs form that are used as adjectives are called participle. They have two forms. In the present tense, you can see in the word that is added at the end ing. In the past tense, you can see ed or you can add en at the end of the word. This contains action, but they are not used as verbs in the sentence. Example: streaming videos. The word streaming is an example of participle. Walking track. The word walking is the example of participle. Broken window. Broken is an example of participle. Official. Elected. Elected is a form of participle. Participle found describing, modifying the subject. Participle phrases are always used as adjective. Participle will have commas setting them off. So, they have comma that set them off. For example, running at full speed, comma, the back raced 20 yards for a score. Second, crying loudly, comma, the baby wanted some attention. Those example is a participle where you can see running, crying, and the comma, which is the sign that it is a participle. Third, we have the gerund. A gerund is a verbal that ends in ing and function as a noun. The term verbal indicates that a gerund, like the other two kinds of verbals, is based on a verb and therefore express action or state of being. So as you can see, participle and gerund are almost the same. So what are the difference between participle and gerund? We will find out that later. First, here are the functions of gerund. A gerund looks like a participle but it ends in ing. The gerund is going to be used as a noun. So, it could be a subject or direct object. Gerund will show up as subject, direct object, object of preposition. So, as you can see in the example, gerund as a subject. The first example is, dancing is my talent. In the underlined words, you can see the word dancing. It is served as the subject or the noun in the sentence. And as you can see, dancing is end with ing. Next example is, traveling might satisfy your desire for new experiences. The word traveling serves as subject and it's also ends with ing. Gerund also stands as direct object. First example is, they appreciate my painting. In the underlined words, there is the ing in the end of the word. So as in the second example, she likes singing. She is a noun. Likes singing also stand as subject, singing that the word ends also with ing. Gerund also play as object of preposition. The police arrested him for speeding. You might get in trouble for faking an illness. As you can see in the sentence, there is already a noun and gerund plays as noun. As you can see, the word speeding also ends with ing and faking also ends with ing. Comparing gerund and participle, there are differences between the two. As we teach in our English classes, both a gerund and a present participle come from a verb and both end in ing. However, each has a different function. A gerund acts like a noun, while a present participle acts like a verb or an adjective.
In English class, we are taught the difference between active and passive voice. The active voice asserts that the person or thing represented by the grammatical subject performs the action represented by the verb. As in the sentence, Jerry knocked over the lamp, which is Jerry, the subject of the sentence, acts in relation to the lamp. While in the passive voice, this makes the subject the person or thing acted on or affected by the action represented by the verb, like the lamp was knocked over by Jerry. Well, both sentences describe the same action taking place. Jerry making contact with the lamp and causing it to fall over, with the first sentence making Jerry the subject and the second making the lamp the subject. And for a quick
let us have another example. In the news, the differences between active and passive voice come up as a subject for discussion in criticism of news coverage. When news media reports on incidents of crime, for example, they will often use headlines that feature the passive voice. Man is attacked on Elm Street instead of person attacks man on Elm Street. The passive voice allows for shorter headline, but more pertinently, it puts upfront information that is known. In many cases, especially in the stories involving crime, the fact of the crime being committed and whom it was committed against is known before who committed it becomes clear.